Yeah, Mary is not on today. She is a little under the weather, to say the least. So I'm not sure if I can really be the one to say what's going on, but so anyway, I guess we could start the show. Chantal, are you around? Do you want to start the script?
All right, here we go. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. As a preliminary matter, this is Chantal Blois Murphy, Director of Culture and Tourism. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Matthew Peel.
Here.
Liz Holland.
Here.
Niles Parker.
Here.
Peter Morrison.
Here.
Sarah Boyce.
Here.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. David Sharp.
Here.
And Chantal Blois Murphy is also here. Anticipated speakers on the agenda, please respond in the affirmative. Noah Carberg.
Here.
Thank you for being here this morning. So again, good morning. This open meeting of the Visitor Services Advisory Committee is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment, even though we don't have any members of the public on here. For this meeting, the VSAC is convening by video conference via Zoom app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and to take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. The chair will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in a conversation with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. And then finally, after members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment to those members of the public that have joined the meeting via Zoom. Members of the public who wish to speak must state their names and be acknowledged by and speak through the chair. And finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call. Thank you, and good morning again. Liz, I turn it over to you to lead the agenda.
Okay, thank you so much, Chantal. I just want to welcome everybody to the meeting as well as Noah. It's really nice that you could make the time to meet with us. I just want to welcome everybody, and we need to do approval for the March 14 minutes. Anybody? We have to do roll call for that, Chantal?
Yeah, I think the new guidelines require that.
Okay. So when I state your name, please say whether you approve of the minutes.
Excuse me, Liz, you need a motion and then you need a second for approval and then you'll go through.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you. Okay. So I will run down the names and please state whether you approve of the minutes. Oh. Okay, we have David Sharp.
I can't vote.
Okay, so it's just the number. Sorry, I'm new to this, guys. Sarah Boyce.
Approve.
Okay. Noah Carberg. Oh, sorry, you're not in there either. Matt Peel.
Approve.
Let me get the list of everybody here. That might help. Niles Parker.
Approve.
Peter Morrison.
Approve.
Liz Hall and myself, I do approve. And I think I got everyone, so we can move on. Next on the agenda is a conversation with Noah Carberg, who is the manager of the airport. Noah, again, thank you so much for joining us, and also really appreciated your PowerPoint and all the information that was in it. And so I just wanted to welcome you and just have you speak a little bit about what you provided for us, and then we can have some, questions and perhaps thoughts on what's happening at the airport.
Great. Thank you, Liz, and thank you to the committee for having me. I can't remember if I would have presented last or if it was Tom Rafter, but I did go to the last slide deck that I have as a reference. Would you want me to share the presentation? I can do that, or I can refer to it.
Maybe it may be easier for everybody to understand if you do. And then if people have questions going through it, that might help.
Okay. Okay. There we are. Okay, fancy title slide. I think we can skip that. Commercial travel, everyone here knows travel to the island is incredibly peaky, very seasonally driven. The airport has traditionally been a weekend market. Passengers would arrive on Thursday afternoon or throughout the day on Friday and leave Sunday afternoon or Monday morning. So it's where you see a lot of the up and down over the years as our counts go up and down with weekend and weekday traffic. Green line is year to date. We haven't picked up yet. We're just at the beginning of the season. One item that isn't readily apparent in the data, you might be able to see it with 2022 being the orange line, is that our troughs aren't as troughy as they were, and our peaks aren't as peaky as they were. What we're finding is that most of our growth over the last year and a half has been in the midweek. We're less busy on our peak weekends, which is a relief because peak weekend times had been getting very congested, very busy. And we are experiencing double-digit growth on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Some of the reasons for that, and this is my personal opinion, I'm not wading into any residency or STR debates, but I believe the availability of short-term rentals is one reason. Traditionally, Nantucket has been a week-to-week turnover market on the weekend. I think short-term rentals and other opportunities, that is changing that dynamic. If you are a air carrier and you've invested staff in Nantucket, you've maxed out your staff on the weekend. And they're not necessarily twiddling their thumbs on the weekday, but they're a captive resource. And airlines are really good at figuring out how to fill seats in low periods. And they've done that. I think we've all seen the $59 off-peak JetBlue fares to Metro New York. Those also exist coming back in the other direction. So I think, between the opportunity to find off-peak lodging and match that with off-peak travel, that's been beneficial to a lot of travelers and a lot of repeat travelers. So that is probably one of the biggest trends we've seen in commercial travel. Year to date, so this calendar year through March 31st, we've had 2,859 TSA screened departing passengers. We're not talking about a lot of people in overall terms, but this is up 433 passengers or 18% over 2021. Why is this significant? I don't want to jump too far ahead, but Southern Airways and their secure service, I actually don't have Providence here. Southern Airways discontinued their Providence service, so these numbers are only reflective of Cape Air, and Cape Air is operating at an increased load factor. They're filling about 70% of the seats on that Boston flight now. Typically, it had been around 40 or 50%. So they're operating more efficiently. I know the Hyannis market and decline of Hyannis gets a lot of attention, but the Boston service in the off season has been very healthy this year. Following COVID, a lot of our large air carriers sort of throwing spaghetti at the wall with routes. They threw a lot of frequency and a lot of new routes at Nantucket. High yield market, people were likely to travel, the airlines were hurting, they were trying to make money. With the airport, we were sitting here saying to ourselves, okay, well, this is really neat, but which of these routes are going to stick? Which of these carriers are going to stick? Southern Airways has departed our market. Elite departed after 1 year. This is the second year. Without Elite, they only operated 1 year. JetBlue dropped Newark for this year. Airport code EWR. I know I have a line through it. And United dropped Dulles. That's the IAD airport code. But on the other hand, American kept Philadelphia. American kept ORD. Does anyone know what ORD is for an airport code?
Chicago.
Chicago O'Hare. It's the third year of that service, and we're still thrilled that we have once a week, Saturday, once a week service to O'Hare. It's a little Nantucket on a regional jet. That is a big coup for sort of the efficiency of travel, people coming to Nantucket. And on a lot of these other routes, Delta has kept JFK and LaGuardia, but they've increased frequency and they've upgauged aircraft. They'll operate the E-175. So these routes, Nantucket is now defined by a regional jet operation to major market hubs. And for the most part, these routes have stuck. So shifting over to private travel, I wanted to show 3 items for you in the next 3 slides. The aircraft operation, people drive by the Monahans Airport Road, they see the corporate aircraft, and it can be stunning. It can be sort of eye-popping. So I wanted to talk about the actual aircraft operations, then the passenger enplanements on that travel side, and then how they interact. So I put the data in here. If this is too small to read and you want a spreadsheet of this data, let me know and I'll circulate that to you. It's not, privileged or restricted. You're welcome to use it. But what I'm showing is I have number of aircraft operations. So a takeoff is one operation, a landing is another operation. So a Gulfstream 4 that touches down and takes off is 2 operations. That's the lingo, and that's how we count in airports. And I have the operations counts broken down by month for transient general aviation operations. So the aircraft that park on our southwest ramp off of Monahans Road. By month total percent change year over year. It ends up being a lot of spaghetti lines if I try to display them in a graph. So what I've done is I've taken the average for those months from 2014 to 2022 and displayed that in a gray line. And then I've taken this fiscal year to date and displayed those operations in a red line. So you can see that those operations are a little bit higher than average so far for the fiscal year. And that's the point I wanted to relay. Operations are generally up a little bit for private, mostly corporate travel on the Southwest ramp. So the exact same concept, moving now to passenger activity. Airport on the commercial side, 140,000 in-plane passengers. On the private side, 25,000 in-plane passengers. So it's an order of magnitude less. And we have passenger data. We have operation data going back to 2014. We only started tracking passenger data since 2017. So it's not an exactly matched data set. But I have the same, I'm presenting the data in the same way here. The average is represented by the gray bar. and fiscal year 23 to date is represented by the red bar. And what you see, there's some difference in month to month, but we've actually seen static to fewer passengers coming through that market. And what I think is the neatest thing, when you put those together, what we're seeing is in that market, the ratio of deplaning general aviation passengers to arriving aircraft is decreased. So each aircraft that is coming in is moving fewer passengers away. You know, the difference between 1.8 deplaning passengers per arriving aircraft and 1.4 deplaning passengers per arriving aircraft doesn't sound like a lot, but over the course of 20,000 operations, it adds up, and that explains, I think, to me very well why we've seen an increase in operations, but not necessarily an increase in passengers. My take on it, and this is just Noah Carberg's take on it, is since COVID, and it's been no secret, a lot of people have relocated to Nantucket. Immediately after COVID, we saw the head of households commuting back to New York or DC or Philadelphia or wherever their place of business was. More operations, but really only one passenger for those operations. And that is still consistent. I didn't do a, Sarah, I'm going to speak to you specifically. I didn't do a paired t-test or anything. I just grabbed and displayed error bars. Generally speaking, where the error bars don't touch implies statistical significance. So I believe this would be a statistically significant trend. And then to conclude, I think Tom and I wrote this slide up in 2021. And then I think in 2022, we added the green check marks or the red X's to look at our predictions. So I've kept the slide the same. And I wanted to go through this and see if our predictions are still holding or are still incorrect. So in 2021, looking at the shift in the dynamics of the market for Nantucket following COVID, we looked at our summer commercial service and we said, well, what do we think is here to stay? And it was, well, passengers are going to arrive on regional jets directly from their destination or through main hubs. That was correct after a year, and it's still correct this year. Now, Nantucket is typified commercially by a regional jet market, not the Cessna 402 market. And then the unknown at the time was, is all of this new service sustainable? Is it going to stay with Nantucket in the long term? Are those available seat miles, that's the acronym ASM, equal to passengers, PAX? And in 2022, we said, no. While we did keep O'Hare, there's a pilot shortage, and that's another impact that is hurting the ability of carriers to operate all of the flights that they want. We've since seen Southern Airways depart our market. My understanding or my feeling of Southern's departure is that they have picked up a bunch of federally subsidized routes in the Midwest and in Hawaii. They don't have the pilots and the aircraft to fly every route that could make the shareholders money. They have to focus their resources accordingly because of the pilot shortage. One of the major losses of Cape Air's Hyannis service is the same pilot shortage. So all of this service was not sustainable, but some of it was, specifically O'Hare. And I think that's to Nantucket's benefit. Private travel, the airport, took the guess that the item that was here to stay was the relocation of families from major business centers to the airport, and HOH, the head of households, commuting. We still think that's true. We still see that. We see that especially in the winter months with our fuel sales being historically high. We attribute that to head of households commuting by corporate jet occasionally to their place of business. It doesn't take a lot to increase fuel sales in the winter. It was 17,000 gallons of Jet A sold in February and March is a lot for the airport, and that's one day in the summer. And then we took guest transients operations. A lot of people fell immediately after COVID. A lot of people fell up into the low end charter market. There's not a lot of price difference. It's significant, but it's not a lot relatively between flying with status and first class on a commercial airline and flying a low end charter, especially if you're flying with multiple people. It is more expensive, but relatively, it's not the same jump as it would be up to a corporate operation. That market really blossomed following COVID, but it has tailed off consistently. Depending on people's own personal opinions on appropriate measures at this time, either in the pandemic or post-pandemic, people are returning to commercial operations. Markets are beginning to refocus on their high-end charter operations, the jets, especially the larger jets, as opposed to larger props. So I think that's going to continue to level off. That's probably enough for me. I think that's 10 or 12 minutes. I'm happy to answer any questions or provide any written follow-ups, and thank you for the opportunity.
Any questions or thoughts? For Noah?
I have a question, Liz.
Okay, Matt?
Chair. Wow, fascinating, Noah. Quite a few questions, actually. One being just kind of more curiosity more than anything, really. What I hear a lot of us losing pilots due to federally subsidized routes and things like that. How come Nantucket can't get on that? I mean, it seems like we're a rural area. I'm sure you know the answer to that. That's one question. And two, just curiosity, just had a year-round service with the loss of Southern. I mean, when I have to travel off for work, I always check the airlines to see, because it's quicker, it's easier. The times sometimes are a little more efficient. I would much rather fly, no offense, Liz, I love the Highland. But I would, to save time and get on and off quicker when I'm taking a day trip off the island or something. But price-wise, I mean, it's, what is it, $249 on Cape Air one way. I mean, in the summertime, it's fine because you'd find, $89, $99 to Boston on JetBlue. But, $500 round trip, I could fly to Seattle for that. And just, it's my kind of hope with, more wishful thinking than anything. JetBlue would fly in here year round, would be great. But those are my two questions right now.
Okay. They're very valid observations and very good questions. So the Essential Air Service Program is the mechanism that the FAA funds to subsidize routes between cities, mostly for rural areas. The problem with an essential service route is that Nantucket has service. EIS is generally targeted to airports and communities that have lost service and don't have it. The fact that we still have a service, even though it can be expensive, is not in our favor for competing with essential air service routes. Question on pricing. It's a good one. I fly for work and I try to fly for vacation as well. The pilot shortage, we say pilot shortage because it's the most visual aspect. There are also crew shortages, A&P certified mechanic shortages. The cost of operating an aircraft is on the order of, Cape Air is private, they keep their operating costs private. It's probably on the order of $500 to $600 an hour in an operational cost. Spreading that across 9 seats is very cost prohibitive, and it's simple math. Operational cost for a jet is higher, but spread across 100 seats for only one additional pilot and flight crew. The math is much more in favor of operating large jets to places, and we've seen that for different carriers moving from 50 to 67 seat jets, 67 to 75, 76 to 100. JetBlue specifically, you know, I've made no secret of it. I attend these annual conferences. It's like speed dating with airlines. Your airports are in a big ballroom. Airlines are all sitting at a table. The bell rings and you go from one to the next with your day card. I've worked hard to try to sell JetBlue on a year-round operation. Specifically, they run 7 or 8 flights a day between Boston and New York. In the off season, I would love to see on Fridays, their last New York to Boston flight do a stopover on Nantucket. It's a low risk to the airline. They don't need to fill 100 seats on that aircraft. Stopover, drop passengers, pick up outgoing passengers, continue to Boston, and then reverse that on a Sunday. One of the major hesitancies for JetBlue, and there are two, it still represents a risk for them. They know they can make money doing what they're doing for their shareholders. And the other is their ground handling costs to staff above and below the wing at a ticket counter, someone to haul bags. Just doing 2 flights a week is not a break-even proposition for them. Each airline has their own metrics and their own threshold. JetBlue is probably somewhere on the order of needing to turn 3 to 4 flights a week to make a ground crew. Makes sense.
Any other questions?
Hi, Noah. This is really a terrific presentation, and I know you've been doing this on a regular basis. And I'm just kind of blown away with the, insights that come out of this. I had a couple of suggestions. One is, I think there's a much broader audience for this information, and I would certainly encourage you to maybe prepare a 1-page narrative that goes with this, that could be made more widely available to people who are just trying to decide when to keep a restaurant open, or why they shouldn't close it for another week, because there really are some, important insights here. I guess you covered the other point I wanted to ask, because I know that you were the one, I recall you were the one who had brought to the attention of one of the airlines about the hidden opportunity in Philadelphia a couple of years ago. Is that correct? They started the service after you told them there are a whole bunch of people from Philadelphia who come and go here all the time. And I wonder if you had any success, or maybe were able to cultivate any new possibilities when you went on the speed dating trip, the annual speed dating trip. And just one final question. I think the issue of staffing for stopovers. I'm not sure that our airline here, Cape Air, is fully aware of that as something where they might be able to throw 2 people, to staff up something where they just have a flight coming in once a day. When I was working at Cape Air, I never heard that brought up as a possibility, but it seems to me that some way of at least in alerting Cape Air to the fact that there might be a market for that would tease in a flight, a stopover flight like you're talking about, so that these opportunities could be realized in actuality rather than just seen as a possibility. So that's kind of what I have to say. And I just want to say I'm a huge fan of this. It's really terrific.
Good observations. The item, so Cape Air and JetBlue are, partners who work together very well. They code share and they interline, but they're also, from my observation, incredibly competitive. And I can't say, because I don't know which side this comes down on. On the one hand, JetBlue probably looks at their Boston operation and sees a Cape Air network that is bringing them tens of thousands of passengers a year into the JetBlue system and saying, hey, if it ain't broke, I'm not going to fix it. I'm getting a great benefit here. At the other end, potentially Cape Air could be protective of their market. They did used to ground handle for JetBlue at Nantucket. I'm not sure when. It has been quite some time. But they may be acting in a manner to exclude JetBlue from a year-round operation at Nantucket. Strictly capitalistic business decisions that are happening at a corporate level that I am just spitballing about. I don't really know. I always want to be careful. I'm happy to talk about routes that I've identified and won, but I want to make sure that I do so. It's in the concept of efficiency. The Nantucket traveler to the airport has changed. Our position is we're not trying to identify routes and opportunities to bring more people here. We're trying to bring the same number of people here, but more efficiently. Summer residents can travel back and forth more than they may have otherwise. With that being said, Philadelphia was an opportunity. It was unserved. That's one that we use specifically mobility-based data to make an argument. We picked American because they hub out of Philadelphia. We thought they were the most likely to fly it. They had room in their schedule, so it was a targeted route. Chicago was a targeted route. I am going to claim credit for those. There's one more route that I think is appropriate and it will shock people, maybe not. And I'm trying to get someone to fly it, but South Florida on its own is a market that is roughly equivalent to what the airport sees from DC or Philadelphia. And those are passengers that are hubbing now through multiple other locations. South Florida itself is not the same as an airport. South Florida, 3 or 4 major airports in that market. But finding the right combination of a carrier with staffing, a smaller aircraft that could fly that distance and land in Nantucket would be another opportunity for a direct market. And those direct longer haul markets tend to be more profitable. It's not a passenger volume revenue source. It's an aircraft servicing revenue source.
Anyone else? Sarah?
Yeah, thank you, Liz. Thanks, Noah. That was really insightful for what we're seeing for numbers. I kind of had a different question other than people getting here. It's more like once they get here. So from the visitor services perspective, especially with what you're seeing as the change of like the numbers increasing, because it's like people who are here all the time or have reestablished their base here. So from sort of the visitor services perspective, what are you seeing as the needs of people coming in, whether it's transportation to and from the airport, or are they looking for, I know that we visitor services like have materials there and things, but are there needs of the people that are coming to the airport once they get here?
That's a very good question. Some of the work that we need to do more of is the passenger profiling work, specifically the number of new versus repeat visitors. My sense is that we have a high number of repeat visitors, and it's not, and these visitors have expectations, and there are services that you see at some of the best airports in the country that Nantucket would like to be able to offer. Pet relief areas, nursing pods, upgraded concessions, things of that nature. We don't see a lot of, or a high proportion of first-time travelers who arrive to the airport and don't know where to get a cab or pick up an Uber or get their bags. Most people arrive knowing something about the island, and they're really eager to get out of and away from the airport and on with their trip. So I think it's setting up and integrating the ground transportation with the airport curb frontage for both the arrival and the departure. And I think that also feeds, that's a good question. It feeds into facilities. making sure the facilities are appropriate for the passenger profile. And, David and Chantal do a great job staffing our ambassador program. They keep their own data, their own number of contact points. So, I'm curious, David, if that would also agree with the data that you keep and you track. If I may back through the chair to deflect the question.
I wanted to actually just ask you one question myself, and that is when is the start for all of the larger carriers? Do they stagger it, or, I mean, I would assume that some of it would be starting this month. And then the other thing is, just as a note, is very often in the summer, we have people arriving at the Highline counter with bags that have no idea about anything, because what they're doing is they're flying into Nantucket, getting down to us, and then hopping on the boat and going to the Cape. So that's a market that's, definitely we're seeing more of, and I just wanted to give you heads up about that as well. But I was interested in about the timing of the big carriers.
Yeah, it's different every spring based off of the airline staffing availability and economic decisions. JetBlue is starting, I believe it's this year, on May 4th or 5th with 1 or 2 flights a week, going to adding a couple flights starting the 11th. Then by Memorial Day weekend, they're up to 7 or 8 daily flights, depending on day of the week. Delta will start Memorial Day weekend, and then United and American will phase in over the beginning of June. And then as it stands now, JetBlue will operate until the 30th of October. And off the top of my head, one or both of Delta or United will be fairly significantly into September. So I think they're recognizing the value of the wedding season. And yes, because of the availability of air service on Nantucket, we are pulling people who are transferring to the Cape by ferry. We think this is great because I think it's a benefit for both modes of transportation without taxing island resources. We're also finding, just on the airport, we are actually having connecting passengers. The passengers whose origin and destination is not Nantucket, but they're connecting through here. For example, we are the only airport in the JetBlue system that provides a transfer from Westchester County to Reagan National. So we have stopovers from Westchester to DC and vice versa.
Interesting. Anyone else? Matt?
Yeah, excuse me. No, how much workforce flights are coming in? I know, what was it, like UPS is doing 2 a day or something? I think Marine's got one coming in every day. Just kind of curious about that as well.
Yeah.
Workforce, has there been an increase?
Those are the ones that I know of. UPS flies staff and daily, I think that's correct, as you mentioned, 2 flights. Marine Home Center through their aviation branch, which is AMA Airlines. It could be 2 or 3 flights in the morning between crew and supplies. I'm sure there are more staff that are flying in, but it's on a charter basis, and unless we're there and we see people in uniforms, we don't necessarily know for sure.
Peter, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate, the more I hear you talk about this, Noah, the more I think this document and some kind of a narrative, just summarizing the bullet points, really needs to be distributed more widely. I just, as I listen to you talk, and I put myself in the position of somebody trying to decide how to run a restaurant, or to redesign a new way of getting people around, recognizing that people who arrive at the airport know exactly what they're doing, and people maybe coming in on the ferry, are bewildered when they get off the thing because it's their first timers. There's just a whole lot of insights here that take us from zero information and pure speculation to we think this is how it works, and you might benefit from knowing this. I would just advocate for saying that, you know, we ought to make this a very public kind of document with your insights, perhaps, you know, just the way you've explained it, to say, you know, with you know, implications for, particularly for people who are trying to guess what their customers are like on the ground. The fact that people are transferring through Nantucket just blows my mind. Where is that heading?
They aren't big numbers of people, Peter, but it's definitely more apparent that people are doing that, and probably because of the fares. You know, otherwise they have to fly to Boston and then get down to the Cape. They've got to go over the bridge. We know what a nightmare that is, especially leading up to Memorial Day weekend, with all the work being done. So it's actually kind of a smart way to get to the Cape if the price point is right, and they're in an area where, you know, people are flying, you know, the big carriers are flying from.
The simple point here is that you're unveiling hidden opportunities for the brightest people who are trying to figure out how to innovate on Nantucket. And we got a whole lot of bright people, and they have zero data, and now you're giving them some of it.
Sorry,
Sarah, go ahead.
Thanks, Liz. Yeah, this is more of an observation, but I think the numbers that Noah is talking about, and the sort of changeover from people coming on a weekly basis to like people coming back and forth because they're making it their second home. I mean, we're seeing that in, you know, like the charter business and things like that, where people that are here longer, they have different needs, right? So same thing with restaurants and all that. It's like, if someone's here, if there's new people every week, then somebody always wants a fishing trip and always wants to go to other restaurants. But if someone's here the whole entire summer, they're going to do that once or twice, or they're going to not fight for those reservations as frequently. I'm just thinking of how that affects some of the other services. But I also agree with Peter that, you know, what Noah was saying about the increased amenities, you know, like the need for that. I mean, Liz, you probably see this too, but, you know, I think of when people come to like we talked about this when we talked with Sheila Lucy about the harbor, or the town pier. It's like people are coming to our destination. Nantucket is like this world-renowned millionaire's paradise, but then the amenities aren't maybe what they're used to at other higher end destinations. So I think that's to keep in mind for this committee. You know, what's needed there maybe isn't more information about like how to get to the brewery. People know that that are already coming there. It's more like, what are the other amenities that we can either provide, or opportunities for additional businesses and resources. So that's more of an observation than anything else, but thanks.
Thank you, Sarah. Anyone else? Probably no one
Yeah,
needs to think all that. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Thank you, Liz. Just to add on, and you know, kind of point that Peter made there too, you know, with the flight and the information for the restaurants too. You know, I'd tell you on the shipping end of it, and I deal with a lot of customers downtown. We're seeing a lot of retail open up earlier this year. You know, everybody's going to be, I think quite a few of the stores downtown are going to be open by Daffodil, if not already open now. And we're seeing earlier and earlier shipments, and more restaurants and more retail downtown that's bringing stuff in earlier and earlier, wanting to get a head start on things. And you know, I think that'll reflect hopefully in the passenger travel as well. So
actually, it is reflecting in the passenger travel, excuse me. We throughout March, we had people coming over for the day, groups. We had a party of 13. I think it was this past Saturday that came over for the day, you know, and a family, grandmother in the wheelchair, the whole thing. So it's definitely expanding much earlier than, you know, And so it's actually important for, I think, for the visitor center to be able to communicate, and have us at Highline or wherever they come in to, send people to the website or to the visitor center or whatever. So because they come over and they've done no research and it's just mind blowing, but so they really need to be, steered in the direction of things that are open. So I think better communication within the people that are open so that we can kind of go, have them go from point A to point B. Well, what about the Whalen Museum? What about this? What about this? So anyways, just something to think about an expanded season. So anyway, David?
I agree. It's just communication needs to get out there. They're really unprepared when they get here and think that they're trying to beat the crowds from the summer, and they come over and it breaks my heart to tell them like it's gonna be hit and miss with the stores, and there's only one museum open and so forth. So but yeah, I can see there are people coming who are just wanting to see the island a little earlier in the season, or can only get here at that time of year.
Right. Chantal, are you raising your hand?
Yes, I was. Thank you. Last week, David was out on his fabulous European tour. Okay. And I was manning the desk. And I met a lot of people who were coming over, and I was surprised. I think one morning, can't remember what day it was, it might have been Tuesday or Wednesday when it was just gorgeous out. In the first 3 hours of opening, I'd already helped 16 people, which blew my mind that there were, and they were all looking for, of course, tour buses. They wanted bus tours. And it broke my heart to see that there are no bus tours available right now. They were grateful for the walking tour maps and, the intel on you can take the wave out to Sconset, and here's a map of that for you to do a self-guided tour of that, but they really wanted bus tours. And I think it's such a missed opportunity because at least, we get at least 4 groups of people this time of year looking for bus tours, and none of them are available.
We get a lot of requests for bus tours as well.
Yeah.
At the office, Highline office. David?
Yeah, it's just the thing is what is kind of difficult for them to comprehend is that there's little staffing for these tours, and that some of these tours are away, and you just don't have as I said, the staff or the demand for it. And only Gail Johnson just came back this last 10 days. Everybody else is still away and won't be starting until the end of the month as we get towards Daffodil. But yeah, as Chantal had mentioned, on Monday there were 30 people in the office, and the following day 24. So that's been up considerably from the 3 or 4, 5, 6 that we've seen on average during the January, February, and March. So, hey, Liz, I want to kind of indicate, just let you know that we are only on until 9 o'clock. So if we can,
Well, we best get moving
otherwise we'll
then.
lose the connection. So
Okay. Anything else for Noah? Because we can send him on his way back to work. Thank you so much for joining us, Noah. Really appreciate all the information, and it's good insight for all of us, actually. So
Thank you for having me.
Keep me in the loop, Noah. I'd be happy to work with you on whatever you write up.
I'm here to serve. It's not something I would put on my own, but happy to help and facilitate.
thank you. Okay, back to business for us, I guess. Let's see what we have. We have the reports next, I think. I gotta check my list here. Director's report.
Hello again. So it's the month of March was very interesting. I feel like we went from it being an absolute ghost town to in a week and a half, the island was just so busy. And it was really nice to see more people popping up on the island and whatnot. We are in full swing planning 4th of July. So we've pulled together our summer issues team. We had our first meeting for the 4th of July planning last month, and we have another one coming up next week to kind of iron out the performances and whatnot. We're excited to offer more performances downtown, bringing back the food trucks, of course, but on that same stretch of Federal Street where we had blocked, and also utilizing Main Street a bit more. It was a little awkward closing Main Street for the first half of the day, only to have, you know, the 20-minute water competition and then nothing else happening on that. So we're hoping to have some performers, kids from the music center, dancers, the little dancers performing on Main Street as well. And the chamber was kind enough to allow us access to their stage that they purchased last year. So it'll be nice and safe for our dancers. But yeah, so that's kind of the big focus right now. We also have, in working with the cultural district and the cultural council, our June 1st award ceremony that I mentioned. That's officially been planned, and invitations will be going out on Friday for that. So thrilled about that bit. And that's really the brunt of what we've been working on. Oh, finally, on March 31st, our last grant cycle of the year closed, and we awarded money to 5 different organizations on the island to help with their programming for the summer. Things ranging from kids programs to programs for seniors. So we're excited about that, and to see what they do with that money. So yeah, that's kind of my big spiel on what I've got going on over there. If anyone has any questions for me.
Any questions for Chantal? Then moving right along to David, Visitor Service Coordinators Report.
Yes, I included the March stats. As you can see, we've more than doubled from both January and February. To 136 people have passed through, and that's just March itself. And then I want to point out that through yesterday, we had 123 people for April so far. So, and of course, it's just only the beginning to the middle of April, and things are going to start picking up. I'm going to have the office open this Saturday for half a day, as we have bringing staff back, but they're not as available as they would be normally in the summertime. And we're also going to be open on Patriots Day Monday in the morning. So otherwise, we've been closed on the winter holidays, but I will be around on Monday morning to greet people who are here for the day and avoiding going to Boston for the marathon, but I'm sure we'll get people and so forth. And then we're going to be, getting staff back for Daffodil Weekend. We're going to be open fully Daffodil Weekend. And we're advertising for hiring to fill in more positions and get us going for the summer. So we're looking forward to a great season.
Okay, thank you, David. I guess we can wrap it up unless anybody has anything else to say or offer. Matt, please.
Yeah, I'll just make it quick, but I just kind of thinking about it, like what Peter said, just getting out to a bigger audience. I think this year may be a good idea, to kind of collect all this information. And I don't know, does the Visitor Service kind of publish anything at the end of the year to all the restaurants and something for everybody to see, just so they can kind of make those judgment calls? It's like, okay, yeah, maybe it is worth, getting staff here earlier and trying to open up at the beginning of April. There is kind of showing that there may be some justification to kind of get the ball rolling a little bit earlier. I know most people are like, probably don't want to deal with that because they have a hard enough time getting through this summer with staffing and all the other stuff. But it's, to show the people that do have the staffing, it may be justified to kind of get that information out there that, look, these are the people that are coming here. This is how much, and, even to the airlines, things like that, start getting more. So just a
Okay,
thought.
Thank you. Peter, if you can be brief.
Very brief. I got a better idea. I'm gonna tell Jason Graziadei about what I heard and suggest that he take a listen to what we heard today. We might persuade him to write a piece for N Magazine.
Liz,
Thanks, Peter. Yes. you
I
gotta-
just want to just kind of just interject by saying, there's still staffing challenges overall. People for some reason are staying home and not, working as much as they used to. So that's a challenge I guess everybody has to consider, and which could be part of the reason why, they're not being able to open up other places as easily and earlier than they would normally be.
Very true. Very true.
I agree with David as well. I've spoken to a few restaurants that opened this past week, and it's not that they don't want to be open. It's an issue of finding the staff to get their spaces open. In addition to what you had mentioned earlier, we do publish our stats each year. It goes in the annual town report with all of the other department reports. I don't know how many people actually read that information, but I am excited. We're about to get kicked off in 3 minutes. So I'm going to talk really fast. I am excited about a program that the airport, actually, NOAA brought to our attention that we're partnering on that will get us more detailed information about visitors to the island. It's a fabulous data platform that breaks out. You can segment it so much to tell who are year-round residents. So we'll actually be able to get an accurate depiction of how many people actually live on Nantucket. We'll be able to accurately tell how many people are traveling back and forth, what hubs they're coming from, what they're doing once they're on the island, the restaurants they're eating at. Are they utilizing short-term rentals? Are they hotels, inns? Do they own homes on the island? That sort of thing. Are they shopping at Stop and Shop? Are they using the UPS? We'll be able to get so much information about our visitors annually. We get access to that program on July 1st. So part of our report going forward will include the data from that. So, and that's information that I'm happy to share with, organizations on the island, different businesses who need to make decisions about their staffing and their hours as well.
Awesome, Shan. That sounds great. So do we have to do roll call to adjourn, or we can just motion it and move it?
I think motion.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great
Thanks,
day.
everybody.
It's a nice action-packed hour. Lots of information. All right, take care.
Aye.
Bye.